Today we're going to be putting the 13 colonies to the test with a battle royale against every other state. There also are technically still parts of the 13 colonies in the game where it's like Georgia still is like a state in here, even though they're part of the 13 colonies. Same thing with North Carolina, Virginia, and like New York, Pennsylvania. But like these areas technically weren't claimed by the 13 colonies, so they still are in the game. And like Vermont, I don't know if Vermont was the one that was in the state or New Hampshire was in the state. Either way, Vermont's also in here. But I think the 13 colonies will win this battle royale against all other states. But they're just in a really good position, and they clearly have the most like land. And I don't know. I just really like the spot they're in. And Ohio is the first one to go down. I actually thought Ohio would do kind of good. Indiana looks pretty solid as well here, and New York does not look good. They're going against the 13 colonies, but the 13 colonies don't look that strong at the jump of the game, but they should be able to take down New York, Vermont pretty quickly. Everyone else looks pretty solid. I mean, South Dakota looks like it's about to go down. New York does go down to the 13 colonies, but I mean, everyone else looks fine to me. Even North Carolina is like surviving a little bit longer than I thought they would. Tennessee doesn't look the greatest because they're just getting eaten by West Virginia. North Carolina became a puppet state of Tennessee, but Tennessee is about to go down in like 2 minutes. Washington goes down to Oregon. I even see that. And Vermont goes down to 13 colonies. Kind of makes sense. It was a really small. Wisconsin goes down. Wasn't even paying attention up there. Illinois looks pretty good to me. Georgia almost went down there, but it became a puppet of Florida instead. And Minnesota got conquered by Iowa. Kansas got conquered by Missouri. A lot of stuff is happening in the kind of Midwest area. Like a lot of these states have already gone down. And North Carolina eventually does go down to the 13 colonies. South Dakota becomes a puppet of Montana. Texas looks not good at all right now. I think they will be going down soon. Oklahoma is kind of an interesting pick here. I don't know if they're necessarily going to win this entire thing, but they do look probably the best right now, as they also take down Nebraska at the same time they take down Texas. They might be in first place here technically. Pennsylvania goes down to Indiana and technically the 13 colonies, and Tennessee also goes down to Illinois. So there's Georgia going down to 13 colonies. So they basically reunited all the colonies under one name. But it is really interesting because now Oklahoma is technically the number one nation here. They are above the 13 colonies, even though they are in a much worse position, in my personal opinion, being in the middle of the map versus the side of the map where 13 colonies are. They actually are in a pretty good position, and it is kind of interesting that someone else has like quickly taken the lead, even though Oklahoma really wasn't the biggest nation at the beginning of this game. So it is kind of interesting in that sense. And Missouri also looks pretty solid. Like Iowa looks good. West Virginia goes down to 13 colonies. So every single like former colony technically, or every single piece of land that technically was owned by the 13 colonies is all now dead. So rest in peace to Pennsylvania, New York, North Carolina, Virginia, a ton of these states that just immediately went down. But there's really not that much going on now that kind of everyone is blobbed up, and there's only about half the nations left now. So it is kind of nice because everyone kind of has their own area, but you know, there's Kentucky going down. There's not really as much interesting fighting. Illinois goes down as well. Rest in peace. But it is like a lot more interesting now when a big nation goes down. They really just go down, and like there's Arkansas going down. Rest in peace them. I mean, Florida doesn't look that great. All these kind of southeast schools, or like countries, I guess you want to call it here, they don't look that greatest. The SEC doesn't look that good here, but I mean, they could still pull it off. I could see it. But Louisiana, okay, I see the take here, but it's just like they've all been hitting against each other. There's really only 3 of them left between Louisiana, Alabama, and Florida, and they just all seem to kind of be the same size they were at the beginning of the game. So they don't really seem to have gained that much land. I mean, they didn't really have that much at the beginning, but like Texas went down, Arkansas went down, and they didn't really gain any extra land. Michigan also becomes a puppet. South Dakota became a puppet of Montana, but then now they're alive again. And Alabama is fighting against both Louisiana and the 13 colonies. Not really much is going on in the West. Like Arizona's still alive, New Mexico's still alive, Colorado, Utah, Nevada. Basically, there's not a single state that's gone down here except for Washington in this like west side of the map. All the deaths have happened in the east side because maybe there is like weird terrain down there. But I don't really know. I could not tell you. Indiana, oh, they're just getting attacked and destroyed. And it looks like they're about to, oh, they barely survive. They still have some land left though. And the 13 colonies are just slowly continuing to eat up more land. They just take down Florida right now. And Oklahoma is slowly getting squeezed down by Louisiana. Rest in peace to Oklahoma. It looks like pretty soon. The 13 colonies do look extremely strong. But Indiana and Alabama are both fighting back against the 13 colonies. This is kind of crazy because, you know, I still really do think the 13 colonies are in a great position. They just need to beat Indiana and Alabama, and they really only have a couple weak nations on their borders. Iowa is looking not good right now. Alabama's starting to kind of eat into that land right there that they took down, and Montana. Everyone is. But just in general, I thought the 13 colonies would be really good just because they are in that corner position, and they only right now, wow, Oklahoma goes down, and Iowa looks to also be going down pretty soon. So like a lot of big nations that are like had been taking up a lot of land, like Iowa and like Oklahoma, that were like these super big, taking like a ton of land at the beginning of the game, they're all going down now, and like Indiana in the same way. So it is just kind of interesting how many of these nations have just immediately gone down. While in the West, they're kind of all still here. Almost all of them are still here, and none of them have really taken a crazy amount of land. They all kind of vaguely look similar, even if they're not the exact same. The 13 colonies just starting to eat up Alabama right now. This is, yeah, 13 colonies clearly in the best spot. Alabama goes down after they were about to take down Iowa. Just kind of insane. Colorado takes down Missouri. Okay, that's kind of crazy. I mean, there is only about like 15 nations left, and there's Iowa going down as well. It is pretty interesting because, again, still nothing has really changed. Like all these Western countries, states, whatever you want to call them, are still left. Just the 13 colonies are still like the biggest power here by a good amount, but there still are a ton of other nations that could, I think, win this game, especially if any of these countries in the West want to start blobbing up and fighting with each other, because you know, there's potentially a lot of power here, especially when there is so much land for the taking if they want to start fighting back. And look, Colorado is right in the middle of the map, and they've been doing pretty well. I mean, they're fighting back against the 13 colonies, even though the 13 colonies are in just a perfect position where they only have two bordering nations. So it's like they really only have to fight against two different nations. Potentially you could say Michigan as well, because Indiana is technically like their puppet, but I don't really think Michigan's going to fight back against them. It is just, it's just really interesting seeing where this is all going. Louisiana does not look the greatest. Looks like they're starting to make some inroads. Colorado's just doing amazing, though. They're really fighting back against the 13 colonies, and they're right in the middle of the entire map. And they're clearly the biggest nation here. Like, if you look at the statistics, Colorado's clearly the biggest nation by like a couple thousand like land points or whatever. So the fact that they're in the middle of the map means that they're probably not going to win this entire thing, but it is like kind of exciting to see how big a nation in the middle of the map can do at points, just because you can just take over so much land everywhere. New Mexico going crazy against Louisiana, and they take over Louisiana, technically having them become a puppet, but still it's just kind of crazy to see how much some of these like weirder states, like, I mean, Colorado's not that weird of a state, but like New Mexico is doing really well, surprisingly. And like the 13 colonies kind of just seem like they're in the same spot they were at the very beginning of the game, which is disappointing to me in a way, because I thought they'd really just start steamrolling people, especially when the West, again, still has a ton of nations left. Like the majority of the Eastern people have been eaten up, and the land just hasn't gone to the 13 colonies. It's gone to Colorado and Michigan instead of the 13 colonies where it should be going, which is just, I don't know, it's weird to me, because the 13 colonies should be like the strongest nation here easily. And they were the strongest nation at the very beginning, but they're just clearly not doing that well at the moment. I'm just trying to see, oh wow, Colorado, they were looking so beautiful for so long. They just got a ton of land eaten by Michigan. 13 colonies as well do not look good. Oh my god, the 13 colonies literally could choke a 13 colony lead against everyone else. They had so much land compared to everyone else, and they just are really not putting it to use. And the fact that they were in a great spot, wow. Michigan is just getting eaten by Colorado. Just munched and eaten. Wow. That is crazy. Louisiana goes down to the 13 colonies. Montana goes down to Idaho. And Colorado is getting eaten. And Michigan is also getting eaten at the exact same time. I was hating on 13 colonies. Now they're going insane right now. They just ate another one. And now they basically own half the entire map. Half of the map. And they only have 3 neighbors right now. They're looking beautiful right now. And I was hating on them for so long. And now they're taking over New Mexico as well. Oh my God. They had the 13 colony lead and they really seized it. And they're kind of going crazy right now. In my opinion, like, I don't think there's anyone that can compete with them here. And they probably have as much land as anyone else in this entire game does. So that to me is really interesting and just shows how quickly this game can kind of like shift from one perspective to the next, where it's like 13 colonies were looking fine. But I mean, well, I was going to say like Colorado or like North Dakota one time could just flip a switch on them and just beat them back super far. But I think there's almost no way that they fully take out the 13 colonies. I think the 13 colonies can really only get taken out if Arizona, like California, Oregon, Idaho, they all kind of team up against each other, because they have right now 2 puppets of North Dakota and New Mexico, and they're all fighting against Colorado. Colorado is about to get eaten, but I don't know. There's no way that Arizona or like, I thought they're all friends with each other. But yeah, Arizona and California are technically like puppets of each other, but I don't really think anything's going down here when all of these guys are all part of the 13 colony family right now. And that's basically like 75% of the entire map is controlled by the 13 colonies. And there's almost no way that Idaho and Oregon and Arizona is going to be able to take out like the rest of the map. Basically, it's just like you've got a couple nations left, but I mean, clearly the 13 colonies should pull it off, but I mean, we'll have to see. I just want something to happen here. It's like the 13 colonies don't seem to be doing anything. You need to declare war on these people, but I don't think you can. Yeah, you can't. Okay, so these guys are fighting against each other. Okay, 13 colonies, you're gonna need to fight them to the death. Just a classic fight to the death scenario. Idaho, you're going to need to fight Colorado to the death, because that will hopefully open up a front against the 13 colonies, potentially. I just want to see some fighting happen, and it's like the 13 colonies clearly have the lead here. Like they're clearly going to win this entire thing. I mean, I would say. So just having everyone else fight against them is probably going to make it a little easier for at least a competitive battle to go on, or this to just end a little quicker, because I just don't want it to be dragging on when the 13 colonies don't attack Idaho or Arizona. And I mean, it looks like they clearly are gonna win this entire thing, but I mean, maybe not. But yeah, I don't think there's any way. The gold here, 3,000 gold versus 3,000 gold, and they're fighting to the death, and there's 6,000 gold by Idaho. Idaho could really pull it off. It really just depends on the gold. And the gold is going down a little quicker for the 13 colonies than Arizona or Idaho. So it would be absolutely insane if Idaho pulls it off, especially when like the 13 colonies literally seem like the strongest one in this entire game. Like they just started steamrolling, but I think it's going to be Arizona or Idaho, just because 13 colonies ran out of gold. They literally ran out of gold right now. So Arizona and Idaho are just going to push until they run out of gold themselves. So Arizona, that will be pretty reasonably soon. Like they're not going to win this entire thing from the gold, but Idaho could really just completely destroy the 13 colonies here. I mean, we'll have to see. This is on 5 times speed, so this is the fastest these guys move, which is extremely slow. But I mean, yeah, it's kind of disappointing to see that the 13 colonies, they had a huge lead. They had a lot of money. They had a lot of fighting force behind them. They still are clearly like the strongest nation here, and they're just slowly losing a lot of this territory. But Arizona, whoa, they're spreading like cancer here. Just absolutely insane. They're just spreading everywhere. But they're about to run out of gold reasonably soon. But Idaho just moving like a snail because they've got one. They've only got one army skill, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it, but yeah, 13 colonies in Arizona just pieced out, and Idaho just gets to take up the little scraps of land up here. And Arizona, really could pull it off. But what I will do is I'll wait a little bit for the 13 colonies to regenerate. But hopefully Arizona, or technically they're all puppets. So I want to go to Arizona. I'm gonna say release the 13 colonies, release Idaho, and fight to the death, both of them. And then 13 colonies, you need to fight to the death against Arizona. So they're all fighting against each other right now. We're going to see who the real winner is. It looks like Arizona pulled it off. The 13 colonies had a lead. I kind of screwed them in the end. But wait, Idaho? The 13 colonies look screwed. Idaho still looks kind of fine, because they're pushing against Arizona. Might not be for that long, but they're pushing. They're really, really pushing. 13 colonies, rest in peace. It's between Idaho and Arizona. Idaho is spreading like a cancer, like a fungus, whatever you want to call it. They are spreading. And Arizona really could lose it. Hey, if you're an Arizona fan, I'm sorry I screwed you guys. If you're a 13 colonies fan, I also screwed you guys. But Idaho really wins this, potentially. They have 400 gold left, and they need to take over the rest of the land. So it might be tough, but I mean, there's almost no way they lose this big of a lead. I mean, technically they're a puppet. I'm going to release the puppet of Arizona. I'm going to have them fight to the death against Arizona again, and just hopefully they can win it all. Okay, there you go. Idaho is the winner. Idaho wins the 13 colonies World War Simulator Battle Royale, whatever you're going to call it. Idaho's the winner.